All right, welcome back to All Sports BPT. It's been a while, but the world is crazy right now, and so are our lives. But we're finally back. We got Phil back in his Lululemon sponsored shirt, and we have a special guest, Adrian Iglesias, joining us from Puerto Rico to talk a little bit of volleyball and some soccer today. But we'll start off today talking a little bit about the VNLs, especially from our U.S. Side. So I think we got to start off with USA women just dominating the first wave of the VNLs, going 12-0. And I think they only dropped 3 sets in that whole time. So absolutely dominating experience from them. And so, guys, tell me what you're thinking now, like seeing this kind of dominant experience performance by USA women heading into the Olympics here.
Yeah, I mean, it's impressive that the women, have only lost, like Ben said, only 3 matches. I mean, with the amount of good teams there are in the women's side, you have teams like Russia that are really tall and athletic. But the U.S. just seems like a step over everyone right now.
Yeah, is that a matter of the way the seeding worked for the beginning of the Nations League? Are they doing it like the soccer Nations League where everyone starts in a certain like even playing field and then they break it up into the higher level teams and the lower teams?
So I think this year, so there's only a certain amount of teams that make the VNL in the first place, and they kind of do. I think this year they've played everyone. I think there were 12 teams that were brought for the men's and the women's, and they're playing everyone. So, our USA women played teams like China and Brazil and stuff like that, but also played some lesser teams along the way. But I think they beat Brazil in 4, which is probably their biggest competition for the gold medal this year. But it's just one of the things too with the VNL is that it kind of depends on how serious each team is taking it. Because there are teams that have already made it into the Olympics, are these teams bringing their full strength? Because I know at least for the women's side, they've got a lot of depth on their team. And I think what we saw out of them for the majority of the time was some of their strongest lineups. So that's something to also take in consideration with their dominance was Brazil throwing out their best team? Were all these teams like pushing it to the limit in the VNLs? Because we saw that with the men, none of the teams.
The men, everyone's like bringing in different players, like different lineups. Because like the VNL and the men's is not like the big major tournament right now. They're like, you can see they're using it like for scrimmages and stuff like that because their goal, like everyone's goal, obviously is the Olympics. Like we saw in the men's that Brazil beat Poland, but it was like Poland's second or third team. It wasn't really. It's the first team with the bench players. What I'm trying to say. So.
Yeah, and so I think that's something to like take in consideration, and because I like some of the decisions that they made for the Olympic team, but I don't know if that means like the best talent is going to be there for the Olympics. So I think we'll get into it a little bit here with the roster for the USA women's Olympic team. So they brought in Micah Hancock from Penn State, Jordan Poulter from Illinois, Justine Wong-Orantes from Nebraska, Jordan Larson from Nebraska, Annie Drews from Purdue, Jordan Thompson from Cincinnati, Michelle Bartesh Hackley from Illinois, Kim Hill from Pepperdine. Oh boy, Faluk Okenrodnwo Gunderson from Stanford, Haley Washington, Penn State, Kelsey Robinson, Nebraska, and Chieka Ogabu from Texas. So I think that it's a pretty solid roster there. One of the things that I saw from like the volleyball community was that, you know, prized setter Lauren Carlini didn't make the roster. And that's something that we've seen from Karch Karai before, their head coach, with his decisions, maybe not taking the best players because they didn't fit his system, or they didn't fit, like, you know, maybe their egos were too big or something like that. You know, he's made that decision before. So that was a big surprise, seeing that Lauren Carlini was on the alternates and not on the actual Olympic team.
Yeah, I have a question about that though. If it's a matter of ego or teamwork, I mean, would you think setters a position that is really affected by having ego too much? I mean, if you want to be the best setter, you're going to spread the ball around no matter what.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know. I mean, presumably Micah Hancock's going to be the starting setter for the Olympic team. And I think she's a better defender and a better server, but I don't know if I would say she's a better pure setter than Carlini. But it might be something that there's better chemistry between her and the team rather than Carlini. So I know I saw it a lot, and there was a lot of people who were like, Carlini didn't make it at all. And that was something that I've never been like a really big fan of Carlini's game before, but if we're talking pure setter, I think she's the best pure setter that US has.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know if the dynamic with her is not the same, like, because like you were saying, like she has the most talent of them all, I think. But I don't know if it's the dynamic or the egos.
Yeah, but I mean, we saw it before with Karch Karai not taking like Destiny Hooker to the Olympics, and even another outside, Megan Hodge. They both seemed to have some attitude issues that just did not work well with Karch, and he just said, "Nope, you're not going to be here. I don't want you to be here." So
yeah, he's that type of coach.
Yeah, well, when you're the GOAT,
you're not doing the things the way he wants.
Yeah, when you're the GOAT, you know, you can make those decisions, and no one's going to really question that. But definitely did, you know, have some volleyball fans scratching their heads.
Yeah, I actually noticed another thing, and that's Kentucky, who are coming off a national championship. I didn't hear you name a single player on that list from that Kentucky team. I feel like it's probably rare, especially on an Olympics year, to not have anyone from the national championship team get called up.
So I think on the men's side, you see a lot more of that happen, where there's players coming through from the last national championship coming through. I think with how many women's players there are, they don't do it. I mean, it's something that we've seen in basketball with, you know, Anthony Davis went with the Olympic team when he was coming out of college. And, you know, even when we think back to Christian Laettner going with the dream team, they do that. But I don't think Karch cares.
Right. Well, yeah, but
yeah,
it is something interesting.
The other thing too is that, and this holds back the women's players from going to the Olympics straight from college. They're playing with a different ball. They're playing in different rules. And, you know, some of these outsides don't play in the back row in the women's college game. And they can't do that international ball. So there's a lot more training that they have to do to get prepped than the men's side does. But we'll shift over to the men's side. A little bit more shaky on the men's side. I think the men finished this round like 5-7 or 6-6. I mean, it wasn't a great showing by them, but Matt Anderson hasn't played in 15 months. Aaron Russell coming off of a hip injury. Taylor Sanders coming off of his shoulder surgery. A lot of injuries that are starting to catch up with this team. And I had actually saw that the women's average age is like 25 for the Olympic team. The men's average age is 29. So there's some age now with the men's team, and I think this is their last shot to win a gold with this team before they start having to like retool and prepare the next generation of players.
Yeah, I would agree because, I mean, Matt Anderson is towards his last years in volleyball. You don't have David Lee anymore. I mean, not a lot of new players. I mean, not a lot, but new players like TJ DeFalco, Michael Law, Josh Twaniga. So, yeah, I agree. This is probably, I mean, it's not going to be easy because you have Poland, France, Brazil,
Italy.
yeah, there's a whole lot. But yeah, if they find a stable pass and good outsides with TJ and I don't know who else is gonna run. Is gonna be the second outside, but they probably are top 5 for me. That's
Yeah, it's I think what we'll see this year is we'll see Sanders and DeFalco as the outsides.
yeah.
And then pretty much everything else is staying the same that we saw from past couple of years with Anderson and Christensen on, right side and setter. You'll have Holt and Smith in the middle. You'll have Sochi as your libero, and you'll go from there. It does hurt not having Aaron Russell. And while I think that DeFalco does have a higher ceiling than Russell. I mean, Russell's 6'9", it's you can't replicate that, and his bick with Christensen, is unstoppable. So that's kind of tough to take him out of the equation with his injury. But I think this will be good to see like DeFalco on this stage to see if he's going to be the kind of player that's going to be able to kind of shoulder the team from here on out.
Yeah, be the next go-to guy. Because obviously we know of his skills. I mean, he has a lot of volleyball. But with Aaron Russell, you have that presence. He's 6'9". He does a lot of things, and it's obviously easier because he's taller. So
Yeah. But we'll talk a little bit about the men's roster that's going to the Olympics here, which had, I think, even more people scratching some heads on this one. And I was, I think I scratched my head more on the women's side. Whenever I watched the men's games this year, and it was kind of a two-headed race for the backup right side position between Ben Patch and Kyle Ensing. And pretty much every match that I was sitting there watching it as a fan, and I saw Ben Patch going in, I was like, I want Ensing in. I trust Ensing more as a player than Patch, even though like everybody knows Patch because he's 6'8". He's got a 40-inch vertical. He makes the crazy highlight plays, and that's what people like. They go to it. But for someone who watched like pretty much every game they played this VNL cycle, like Patch struggled. He struggled. He wasn't a presence on defense. He struggled making smart decisions blocking, and he all he knows how to do is hit the ball. And
I feel like with Ensing, you know what you're gonna get from him. He's much more consistent, and with Patch, like you don't know if he's gonna have a good day or a bad day. Obviously, if he's doing good, well, then he'll do amazing because of his athletic abilities. But with Ensing, he's much more consistent and much more ball control player. Doesn't make much errors, so that's why I think.
Yeah.
Ensing.
But the other one that really surprised people, and even talking with my own dad about this, Jeff Jendrick not making the team was a pretty big surprise. And for you volleyball fans of the men's side, you kind of have been thinking for a couple of years now that Jendrick's the middle to take over for the next cycle. Like David Smith is 36 years old. Like this is his last go at it. Mm-hmm. And I think everybody's kind of been like, okay, when's Jendrick going to make that jump? When's he going to make that jump? You've seen him have some potential, but he struggled again this year. And I think the clock's starting to tick on him. When is he going to make that move to get to the next level, to take over for someone like Max Holt or David Smith, and like have that international like recognition as one of the top middles in the game?
Yeah. I mean, with Jendrick, I feel like it's kind of the same with Patch. I mean, if you're a coach, you want to look at a guy and know what you're going to get from him. And for him, I also think it's about consistency because obviously he has phenomenal abilities as well. He's been in the program for the past 3 or 4 years, I think, longer than Mish Stahl. It's just more about the consistency, I would say, as well.
Yeah. So whenever we look at the big question marks and you see that Ensing and Stahl, who might not have as high as ceilings, but they played damn well this VNL cycle. And I thought it was pretty incredible that, and probably something that Spera was looking at was they came up big when they needed it. So that was my thing whenever I was watching them play, was like Stahl's coming in and he's getting blocks. He's getting an ace. He gets a dig as a middle in the back row, and he's just making a presence for himself. Whereas it seemed like Jendrick and Patch, it was always like, hit it out of bounds, or they hit it into the block, or something like that. The other two guys, it was always seemed like they were doing something on the positive end.
Yeah, and do you think it's a better idea to bring the consistent guys so you know what you're going to get? Or, I mean, you look at some of the teams that will come up against in the Olympics. I mean, Poland is just full of freaks. Russia, Italy, the same thing. I mean, we can name, 5 or 6 teams that are full of just absolute monsters. Do you think it's a better idea to go with the consistent guys that you kind of know what you're going to get out of them? Or do you almost want to take that risk and bring our best athletic players that if they get hot, they can win us stuff. But if they don't, everything's going to go up in flames.
Yeah. And I mean, maybe there's a reason why they're still on the alternates, that, God forbid anything happens to any of our starters. But, like if a Matt Anderson went down, Ben Patch would be coming to the Olympics. Anderson would be getting sent home. But yeah, I mean, it's a good question because I think you got to go big, you got to go home at the Olympics. And
I mean, that's it. I mean, that's the top. You're not going to see anyone's B team anymore.
We gotta try and find. Right now, I think when you look at the men's the men's starting lineup, your 2 weakest positions are your second middle with David Smith, and then your second outside with TJ DeFalco, and that's just purely because he's so young, getting into this international game. But yeah, I think they, we don't see what's happening in the gym as well. with the practice and everything, and even like the chemistry that goes on between them, just like we were talking about with the women's side. But I don't know, it's something that's definitely something that this will either like look really smart on Spraw's side of things, or it's going to be something that comes back to bite him in the butt.
Well, it really just depends on our expectations too. I mean, I think our women, the expectation is we're pushing for gold.
The expectation for them
men,
is they should win gold.
yeah, and the men, where do we expect to get? Fifth, fourth, fifth?
I mean, the last Olympics they got third, and I think if we're not at least in that game to play for third place, that's a disappointing outcome.
Yeah.
So I think
Yeah, although
we
last Olympics was the prime of what, 5 starters that are still around.
so yeah, I think this is going to be a make or break, whether this shows that we need to reload like now for the future, or are we going to be able to get one last medal out of like Anderson and Holt and Smith, and see if they can carry us one last time.
I mean,
It's definitely gonna be hard because there are so many good teams. But and like previous years, you had all of them were in their pick, like it's all of their game. And now you bring in a couple of younger guys, so it's definitely gonna be interesting. But I think like every team has young guys on their squad, because in volleyball, like you need to be rebuilding constantly, But yeah, it's definitely gonna be interesting if they get a medal. I mean, I think if they get a medal, it's gonna be pretty good for the U.S. The amount
Yeah.
of they have right now.
yeah, that's definitely a success, I think.
Mhm.
Yeah, because I mean, I think Poland right now is your, like, at least my favorite to win
Yeah.
gold
See,
with
when you watch Poland, it feels like they just have like 8 7-footers on their team. It's just ridiculous. The height, and then they can all jump out of the gym too.
and then you add the best player in the world who's from Cuba, Leon, onto that roster that already was competing for a gold medal. Now you add the best player in the world onto that equation as well, and it's kind of like, is anybody gonna be able to stop them?
It's gonna be fun to watch them. That's
Is.
for sure.
I'm really looking forward to it, and maybe you can give us some in-depth, scoops whenever you're covering the Olympics here.
I mean, if you want to know, what's happening, if you want to know early, you just hit me up.
I will. We got to get
I will know.
We got to get the scoop for all sports BPT here.
I have the live feed, man.
Yeah,
I'm watching all day.
So I don't know much about soccer, but Phil, Adrian, let's talk a little bit about the Euros going on right now. I mean, I think the big story that's gotten everybody's attention was the Danish player almost dying on the field.
Yeah,
And
Christian Eriksen.
yeah,
That was definitely crazy. I mean, everyone was in shock. I mean, something like that doesn't really happen. I was hearing on the news that something similarly happened 18 years ago, and they kept playing the match. And like for the team, it was terrible because obviously you have your mind on a teammate of yours, and at least for now, like the other week, they were able to stop and make sure everything was fine before they resumed playing.
Yeah, it was. I mean, it was like, heartbreaking just seeing everyone so distressed around him. And thankfully, we got good news out of it, because I mean, he was down for about 20 minutes on the field. No one really knew what was going on. The players formed a bit of a wall around him, so you couldn't really see
now
it.
we know that they were resuscitating him. I mean,
Well, I could see the CPR happening. You could kind of see like movements of hands, and he was actually dead for just a little bit. They brought him back, obviously very quickly, but it's incredible that they brought him back. And when he got to the hospital, he was like, "When's training?" The next day. So
I mean, but okay, so first of all, I think the most heartbreaking like picture that came out of that was the Danish captain like comforting his wife like on the sideline there. Like, I mean, yeah, I didn't even like when you first think about that, you're not thinking that she's in the stands like or anything like that. And I was like, oh man, like I couldn't even imagine like his parents somewhere watching, seeing their son just drop, like, devastating. But yeah, but the question then becomes like, he's one of the most well in shape, trained humans in the world, and he just drops like a rock in the middle of a game. Like, boy, how do you like? That just like scares everybody. Like that's something that I think. I mean, at least I had this reaction. Whenever I saw the Kevin Ware injury and the Paul George injury, those were like times where I was like, man, do I really want to jump again? Because like, is that going to happen to me? And now you're like, boy, if I go running, like, and someone like him just dropped, like, does that mean I'm going to drop? So it like some of those things just make you think whenever that's that crazy.
yeah, without getting too existential about it, it's just good to know CPR. Basic CPR is incredibly important, and recognizing the signs. The referee did an amazing job. This is a referee who every week gets hate, like from Premier League fans every single week. Oh, this is the worst referee in the world. I can't believe he still has a job. Blah 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 blah. As soon as he saw Eriksson drop because there was no one around him, he called over the medical team and he said, "We need to save this guy's life." Like instantly, didn't even think about it. Stopped the game, and then he was good with communicating with the coaches of both teams. Like, hey, I think we're going to stop the game. We're going to figure out what's going on, come to a decision. I understand later the Danish team obviously was shaken and they didn't want to go back onto the field and finish out the game. But you can't postpone a tournament like this. You can't break the flow. Otherwise, they would have been playing 2 games in like 2 days, and they don't want that with how compressed the schedule's already been. So, there were a bunch of factors with restarting, but honestly, I don't think anyone from the Danish team or their fans or anyone is going to care what their results are this tournament. They're just happy that Christian's okay.
But moving on to a little bit, like who are the favorites moving through here? Who's been doing really well through the Euros, or has this just been kind of like a crapshoot, just like the men's VNL?
For me, we're exactly where I expected us to be after the first round, which is the stronger team. I mean, Portugal had no trouble with Hungary. The first half they couldn't score, but the second half was pretty easy. Italy took down Turkey pretty easily. So like the weakest teams are getting beaten, but then France struggled against Germany. I mean, both teams combined for like 2 shots, and the only goal was an own goal. So, France is continuing to show they can win ugly, even though they try to play some nice ball. Spain looks toothless. They look like they don't.
They're just so young. Spain has such a young team. I don't really think that they have like a chance if you look at the French team or the English team, because they're just so young. I mean, Luis Enrique, the manager, like made some difficult decisions in leaving out Sergio Ramos, the captain. I mean, he was injured, but everyone was expecting him to for him to be there. So it's just you have a lot of noise with the Spanish team right now.
Yeah, I thought it was kind of surprising he didn't bring Ramos as an alternate or anything. I mean, because they expanded the amount of players he could bring in. It probably would have been a good idea considering like Jordi Alba's the captain now, and
Yeah,
he's not a captain. Sorry,
yeah.
but
Because like you were saying, like every team, who's the captain. Like he's the voice of the team. Everyone follows him, and Ramos is that guy. But with Jordi Alba, it's like it doesn't suit him.
I mean, it's just not his personality, and that's fine.
Yeah,
He's
yeah.
obviously a good player, but
Mhm.
yeah, Spain. I mean, they had 85% possession and couldn't crack Sweden. I mean, that means they basically had the ball 75 minutes out of the 90 minutes of a game, basically. Yeah, give or take a couple seconds. Belgium looks good, but we're not going to know anything until after the group stages for them because their group they play Finland and Denmark next, and neither of them are really, especially without Eriksson. Denmark's not going to be that tough. Lukaku looks good.
Yeah, I was gonna say like he's been balling this last year. I mean, he won the Serie A in Italy, and now he's leading that Belgium team with Hazard being out. He's the go-to guy.
Yeah, don't get confused though, because there is another Hazard playing, but it's Thorgan Hazard who's playing for Belgium right now.
His brother.
Aiden is hurt or something. He's always hurt at this point.
Yeah,
poor guy.
Yeah, I mean that team, like if everyone's healthy, because they did a really good World Cup the last year. So if they're healthy, I think they have a chance.
Yeah, and they didn't have De Bruyne in their first match. Leander Dendoncker, no one knows who that is, stepped in for De Bruyne, and I think Tielemans and De Bruyne is a strong midfield pairing once they're back.
What do you think about the English team?
Well, I guess that's next, isn't it? I was surprised they didn't play Sancho. I was surprised Sterling got the nod over Sancho just because Sancho's, I feel like he's had a better season.
Yeah.
But
and that's his natural position, like that right wing. That's his natural position. Sterling can play both, but he's usually on the left side.
Yeah, Foden. I wasn't surprised that Foden played just because he's coming off a good season. Champions of England with Man City. Defensively, I thought Mings played really well. I wasn't sure what to expect from him. Mount is still great, extremely fun to watch. That dude's like and he's like doesn't run out of energy ever. It's crazy.
The only odd thing for me was putting Trippier on the left back, having Will and Shaw. That was kind of odd to see.
Yeah, England has two really strong left backs that would honestly probably play for any other team. And for some reason he put a right-footed right back to play left back. I didn't understand that choice, but
Shaw has had a terrific season with Man United, and obviously Chilwell won the Champions League, so that was pretty odd.
Yeah, and it's one of those things they won, so you can't question it that much, I guess. And obviously, like Southgate, their coach, he likes having Trippier in somewhere, but I don't know. And you don't want to drop Kyle Walker. So like I totally get why he was struggling with this decision, but like I don't know, just he has so many good left backs. You might as well play a left back at left back.
Yeah, I mean I really like England as a squad, and I think they have a chance. The only position I think they struggle with is goalkeeper. I mean, he's good, Pickford, but they don't have like a top goalkeeper, you know.
Yeah, Pickford is really hit or miss. Thankfully
Mhm.
for England fans, he's been pretty good
Yeah.
for England, like in the last World Cup and then heading into these Euros. But I don't know. I always feel like it's not that comfortable with him around as it would be with, a Courtois or a Lloris or, someone like that.
Yeah, definitely. So,
Okay, so one question for me, someone who doesn't watch soccer that much, what happened to Germany? You know, from didn't they dismantle Brazil? Like,
Um, well, yeah, they did, but that was in 2014. That was 7 years ago at this point. It's the same as any sport. It's cyclical. They had a really strong, consistently good across the way group in that 2014 roster with good leaders and then young players coming in at the right time. Like everything just clicked. This year, they just they don't have the right lineup to compete. I mean, their defenders are all kind of the same player. They're all slow. None of them are really that athletic. Um, and that's dangerous against a team like France, although they were able to control the game a little bit. But that own goal shows that, there were some cracks in defense. Goalkeeper's still honestly probably the best in the world, Neuer. And they're just, I don't know, they just don't have that it factor. They don't have those clinical
mhm.
finishers, those creative players. Their best midfielders playing right back right now, which is actually the same as Spain, which I think is kind of
Yeah.
interesting.
But
But
yeah,
yeah,
I think they're also missing like a pure number nine. Like they don't have like that striker that's gonna score a goal when the ball's not falling in, you know. Because with Timo Werner, like he's a good player, but he's not like a legit goal scorer, and that's probably hurting them.
yeah, and last team to cover, I guess, of the bigger teams would be Italy. They look pretty good. Honestly, no complaints watching Italy. Turkey's not the strongest team in the world, but you can only play who you play against. So,
Mhm.
that's an
Yeah,
easy
with Italy,
first
they
step.
have like a really stable team. Like in all
Yeah,
positions, they're good. Like they're not
they've got
standing in one position, but they're like really compact.
yeah they've got a good striker in Immobile, and they also have Bellotti on the bench, both of which I think a lot of the teams in this tournament would take as
Yeah,
their starting striker. Uh, they've got what Chiellini and Benucci, who have been playing together for
forever.
like 20 years, so
Yeah,
they're pretty used to each other by now. Right back, left back are strong. Midfield's pretty good. They're just set up pretty well for success. I mean, that's all you need is a like consistently good group of players. It's when you have a couple great players and then a bunch of not so great players that you start to
hmm
struggle.
yeah. Who's starting on goal in Italy? Is it Donnarumma?
It's yeah, Donnarumma.
Yeah, he's really good.
Right, yeah. You can say that pretty much about everyone on their team. Plus they've got players who've got some fight in them. Like Jorginho was not even a professional soccer player, until he was like 22. Um, their right winger Berardi was like someone just found him playing for like a high school team when he was 16. Like he was completely unknown, but he was like on the streets dominating, and they were like, all right, we give this guy a chance. So they've got some guys with like a little bit of fight in them, which
hmm
is which I think helps with big tournaments because it gets a little chippy.
Definitely. If you would have to pick a team to win it all, who would you go with?
I'm always gonna say Belgium because
Mhm.
I'm a big fan of the Belgium team, and I think if De Bruyne comes back healthy, he's he's gonna be that X factor that they need against the bigger teams because not everyone has a creator like that. But I mean, France does have a creator with Pogba.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he basically created 4 goals today. Like, I think 3 of them got called offside, and then the one own goal was off his assist. So, you know,
Yeah, I would go with France because of their depth. They're just such a deep squad. Like they have like 4 amazing players in each position.
yeah, if you honestly took France's B team and maybe even their C team, they'd probably all make at least the quarterfinals. That's
Yes.
how good France is. It's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Plus they have Conte, who's just unbelievable. I mean, that guy is seriously like, he's like the sweetest guy off the field, but on the field, just
He doesn't
if
stop
you're,
running.
right. It must be miserable playing against him because he will get the ball from you no matter what.
Well, we're gonna have to check out, your predictions here, see if they come true in what is it, a couple weeks here, whenever they finish up.
Yeah, they got about a month left, so.
That'll be interesting to see how that all plays out and see if there's any surprises along the way or if any of these top teams kind of slip up along the way.
No surprises yet, honestly. I haven't been surprised by a single result, which is weird because usually some upsets happen. I guess the Denmark one would count, but that's a whole different situation altogether. So
I think it's too soon to tell. I mean, to have some upsets. Probably like in the quarterfinals, you'll see more upsets. So it'll definitely happen.
yeah, look for a second, like Hungary might take Portugal down, but it was only a matter of time. Portugal has so much firepower. It's like Ronaldo got his 2 goals. And let me say, the 3rd goal Portugal scored, Ronaldo's 2nd goal, was beautiful. It was beautiful.
The give and go. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That whole build up to it. If you haven't watched it, you got to check that out. Incredible.
Boys, I think we did a pretty good job covering volleyball and soccer here today. Definitely got a lot more in depth in soccer than I ever would have known, and I still don't know pretty much half of what you guys were saying.
We're just scratching the surface. I could have gone another 3 hours.
I know you are. We might have to like make our own like late night lounge just with like maybe you, Adrian, and Tolly, and just let you guys go for like 2 hours about soccer and just see where that gets us. But I think we'll be coming back here again in a couple weeks. See where all the soccer teams are standing. Probably see where the end of the VNL is with both teams, and kind of get our real preview for what the Olympics are going to look like for quite a few different sports: basketball, volleyball, soccer,
handball.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, definitely handball. But it's also great that it's the Summer Olympics because we don't have to cover that trash sport hockey at all.
Wow, even they're catching strays even when hockey's like we didn't have to mention them at all, man.
I had to. Come on, like it's a terrible sport. Come on. But thank you everybody for joining us today. Make sure you subscribe so you can see all the content that we're putting out. We're going to get back onto a more regular schedule now that summer is around and life isn't crazy or as crazy anymore. And you'll be seeing more of us very soon. So until next time, guys, we'll talk to you later.
Bye.